Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Whatnauts review show, where each week we have a different story to talk about. Could be a comic book, a movie, TV show, all sorts of mediums, all sorts of genres. So there is bound to be something for everyone. But yeah, this week is episode 127, and we are going to be covering Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. for our ongoing Halloween month tradition, spooky month. So it's good. I'm excited to talk about all of this. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson.
Yep.
Yeah, Melissa, how's your weekend going?
It's
so
good.
far?
I was just telling you that I just baked 3 cakes. This is what I do when we pushed the podcast back a couple hours today, and this is what I do when I have a couple spare hours. I'm like, I might as well bake several desserts.
That's great. I just got done playing a video game called Spiritfarer. And it's a bunch of like resource management basically, but your job is to ferry people to the afterlife and like help them go about their final businesses and stuff like that, and then deliver them on to the afterlife. And one of the things that you can do in there is cook for them. So you have this like stove, and you put things on the stove, and then food pops out. But yeah, that would be the only way that you would find me baking several cakes at one time, is in a video game. Like let's just make some food for these people.
I'm making a cake just for myself.
That sounds so good, though. What kind of cakes?
I'm making a banana cake because it's a type I haven't tried before, and I just had bananas I needed to use up, so it was appropriate timing. And then I'm going to make some chocolate and peanut butter buttercream.
I don't know if I know they exist, but I don't know if I've seen or had a banana cake.
Typically, I feel like bread takes all the banana shine. People ain't thinking about putting it in a cake. Yeah.
Like bread, but better bread. Cake.
Right. Fancy bread. Birthday bread. A cake is a birthday bread.
Birthday bread. Wow. That opens up a whole new world. Okay. Let's see. My weekend has been okay. We moved the podcast a little bit this morning because I did not sleep well last night, and I felt terrible this morning. So I was just like, I need a little bit of time to get myself going. But here we are, about to dive into week 2 of our spooky month, Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. So Melissa, you came to me with an idea. You were like, hey, I don't really know much about like the dark magic side of DC or Marvel comics. And so you had suggested it would be a really neat thing to explore that stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So I pitched a number of things that was kind of on that darker magic side of the big popular comics and stuff like that. And Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. was one of them. That one I didn't know much about when I was pitching it. I just saw it was only 17 issues. It was written by Jeff Lemire, who I know we both really enjoy. And then I know Matt Kindt comes on in the second half of the book here. But it was one that I was like, I actually don't know anything about this character or S.H.A.D.E. or who they are or what they do. But we had seen him pop up in another comic that we had read, which was the DC Rebirth Superman comics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a series of Superman adventures. He's got a
Yeah,
10-year-old son in this version.
it's
They're just
great.
sort of sweet,
Hmm.
like family friendly, close to home little superhero adventures. And then one issue, Frankenstein is just there.
Yeah.
I know he's a public domain character. Anybody could have Frankenstein, but I didn't know
Hmm.
DC had Frankenstein. Like you could
Oh
just
yeah.
run into him anywhere.
Yeah, they have a number of characters like that. I know the popular ones are Dracula and Frankenstein, but they're all you can run into werewolves and vampires and all sorts of stuff. Van Helsing, I'm sure is in there if he's public domain. I'm not sure, but
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Well, if Dracula is, Van Helsing is.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they had some stipulation of like Van Helsing will always remain in our custody.
Yeah, the Stoker
Forever.
family estate could take one character to keep for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you ended up picking Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. Why did you want to go with that one?
Like I said, I was initially baffled that there was a DC kind of superhero action adventure comic about Frankenstein.
Okay, yeah,
And I did want to see
fair
a
enough.
little bit more from that world. It sounded like it would be kind of goofy, just sort of a good time, you know? And like, yeah, there's opportunities there for more existential thought, as there is with any Frankenstein story, and which is something I appreciate about the character. Like, as silly or as serious as you want to go, Frankenstein can handle it.
Yeah, yeah. He's just like, but am I a monster or am I a man or what am I? I don't know. Yeah, no, it's good. This one was an interesting read. Now having read all 17 or so issues, there's also a issue 0 that's thrown in.
Yeah, I think it's
there
in issue
halfway in.
0 and then issues 1 through 16.
Something like that, yeah. But now having read that, I wouldn't really say this is a good introduction into the kind of darker magic side of stuff.
Yeah, it seems insular. Like there's mentions of like a Animal Man or I don't know if they mentioned Swamp Thing or if they just kept being an ad for Swamp Thing when you finish the comic. I forget if he was in the narrative or not. But yeah, they mentioned
Not really,
things.
but we'll actually mention him down the road once
Yeah.
we get into spoilers and stuff.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of interaction with anything else in the DC universe.
Yeah, for that first half of the book, kind of the main DC character that you see is Ray Palmer, who's the Atom. He's basically DC's version of Ant-Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was
so
a pre-existing guy.
Yeah, Ray Palmer. So he that was interesting to see. I was like, why is Ray Palmer here? Like, I know he's a scientist, but this is just strange. But yeah, for that first half, there's not much to it. It's kind of monster of the week, and it's not until the second half of the book that we really start to get into some of the darker magic side of the DC universe with the rot.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But funny enough, I shouldn't really say familiar with the rot, but one of the things that I also pitched was Justice League Dark, the ongoing series that's happening right now in like 2020, 2019. I think it started in late 2018. So it's been running for like a year and a half or so ish. And that series has been phenomenal. Highly recommend that. I would say that is actually a great place to get a like who's who. But Swamp Thing shows up in that. John Constantine. We see the Rot. We see the Red. We see the Green. We see all of that stuff. And so that was my first experience with the rot of just like what is this, all that stuff. I come to find out that it debuted in Animal Man in the New 52, which was also being written by Jeff Lemire at the same time that this was. So it's kind of Jeff Lemire's invention, I think, to include the rot in the stuff. And unfortunately, once he's off the book, that's when they kind of go more into the rot and stuff like that. So that's why you start to see the cross over with Animal Man and stuff like that. So there you go. But what did you think? Now that we've read this, what were your thoughts, or your general thoughts on Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E?
These are very dense books, and I liked a lot of what was included, but I wish it would have slowed down a bit more so that I could spend more time with every really out there character and concept they threw at you. Like, it's Frankenstein in this set of Creature Commandos, and there's Dr. Nina Mazursky, my new favorite DC Comics character, who's like a lady scientist fish woman. Like, she was a lady, and then she's like, I would like to be stronger and more invincible, so I'm going to turn myself into a fish woman. I did this to myself. She's walking around in this little, like, Abe Sapien suit. She's great. And then there's, like, a vampire guy and a werewolf guy and a mummy. And we get to know Nina pretty well, but the other three, like, we don't spend a ton of time with them.
Yeah.
I would have loved if this series slowed down a bit and we could really get to know Velcoro the mummy, the vampire pilot,
who I just called Velcro the whole time.
Velcro.
I'm like, look, I don't know how to say your name. I know it's Velcoro, but it's Velcro. Come on. I ended up liking it okay. I didn't think it was amazing. I think, to be honest, I think the first half of the book was not great. Sorry, Jeff. But once Matt Kindt got on the book, I felt it got a lot better, and it did slow down.
Yes, it did.
Some, which is, I was like, yes, this is more of what I want here. So
now I need to ask you, what do I know Matt Kindt from? Because I saw that name, and I'm like, I've definitely heard this name before, but I cannot tell where.
I'm trying to think of if there's anything. I don't think we've covered anything of his.
Yeah.
But I know I've mentioned to you, I opened up Spotify. Why the hell am I opening Spotify? I know I've mentioned to you a bunch of the Valiant comics. We've read some of those.
Yes.
He eventually came onto Valiant Comics shortly after their kind of relaunch in 2012, I believe. So it was like a year and a half, 2 years after that. He kind of came on and was kind of like their main architect for a bunch of that stuff. And yeah, they started really taking off with that. So he's a fantastic writer. But I've not read much of his stuff besides some Valiant things. I know there's a series that people really like. Wait, have we? Oh God, you know what? I think. Let me see here. I think we may have read something. Let's see. Typing it in my Google machine.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
What?
Department H.
Oh,
by Matt
that's
Kindt.
where I know him from. Yeah, that makes sense. That was a long time ago.
That was. I was like, because I could have sworn we covered something, but I was like, I don't think we did. Maybe not. Yeah, we covered Department H. Let me look it up here. Department H, episode 12.
Wow.
Man, that was more than 100 episodes ago.
We were babies. We were recording that episode from the 4th grade.
Yeah, right? Yes, we've read Department H, but I know he has we read like the first half because I think it's only like 4 volumes or so, and I think we read the first 2. But he has another series called Mind Management that I know people like a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, but he has that similar indie style to Jeff Lemire, so.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, now that you mentioned Department H, I can see it because that was also a book that had really interesting kind of non-human amorphous threats that this ragtag bunch of operatives was trying to fight against in a weird setting.
Yeah, that weird like almost sci-fi but not really, almost horror but not really. Yeah, so good spooky vibes all around, regardless though. So, yeah, I ended up liking this book. At the end of the day, though, I think unfortunately it's kind of forgettable.
I love the concept. I'll say. I wish this would be like an animated series or movie. I think that's where this premise might really be able to shine.
I think what unfortunately happens is that Justice League Dark ends up kind of taking the cake, so to speak, on this stuff, because it's essentially just a Justice League team filled with similar characters like magic users and monsters and stuff like that. And I know looking at Frankenstein's DC Comics Wikipedia page, he eventually does join Justice League Dark, like after the events in this series that we read. So yeah, I mean it's like, and it's also a more recognizable name, like Justice League Dark. It's like, ooh, that sounds spooky. You know, it's like S.H.A.D.E. What's S.H.A.D.E?
God, another acronym I have to remember.
Right, yeah, so, but yeah, that's kind of general thoughts. I think if you're a fan of Jeff Lemire's kind of mainstream superhero work, this is one to at least check out, because I think it's very similar to some of the things that we've kind of read of his in the past. But yeah, it's him on doing some work for the big 2. So there you go. Let's do a brief synopsis of what the actual plot is for this, because we've kind of talked about it as a concept, but
first off, S.H.A.D.E. stands for Superhuman Advanced Defense Executive.
Correct. Yes. So that's a mouthful, like the rest of the acronyms.
Yeah, this is a story that is chock full of acronyms.
Yeah.
Very reverse engineered acronyms. But it's basically this organization of weird superhuman people. You know, you've got a Frankenstein, as we mentioned, a fish lady scientist, a vampire pilot, a werewolf, a mummy, etc. You know, it's presided over by this Father Time entity that randomly regenerates into a spontaneous new body every decade. The entire headquarters is a 3-inch floating orb that just travels around the world, and you need both teleportation and shrinking to get inside.
Yeah. It's a little strange, but I kind of like how strange it is, though. Of like, they could have just made this some like, you need magic to see the headquarters or something. But it's like, no, it's just a 3-inch floating ball that Ray Palmer had shrunk from its original size to make it small.
Yeah. It's like, it's not just mobile or very small. It's both of them. We went to extremes to make sure nobody can get into this place.
Yeah, and there's no doors on the thing, so you have you have to teleport inside, and they have to mix it with Ray Palmer's shrinking tech, and it's just like, this is a little much, but it's good. Like I like just how much of that stuff there is. But yeah, so that's the organization. They are kind of sent out to deal with these threats that are monster-based / magic-based, kind of. Like, they don't really say, like, hey, we specifically deal with this one thing, right? But they are kind of an organization that will deal with monsters and magic and stuff like that. The arcane.
Yeah.
Which is, where I think kind of the redundancy for Justice League Dark comes in, because that's also their wheelhouse. But yeah, and for Frankenstein is kind of later of the squad. There he is functionally immortal, since he's he's alive, but he's not really. He's not dead, though. And we know that he can kind of not regenerate, but he can like replace body parts if they get cut off or ripped off or stuff like that. And yeah, they just kind of go from place to place fighting these monsters and stuff, and that's mostly it.
Yeah.
It's not much to it besides that. Yeah, I do want to mention it's not really towards, or it's more towards the second half of the book that we do start to slow down a bit, and it's not just Monster of the Week, and we do start to get like one bigger story. Like, here's something that will last a few issues. So if nothing else, stick it out for the second half of the book.
Yeah.
There you go. But let's get into housekeeping, and then we can jump into spoilers and stuff like that. So if you did not know, we have multiple podcasts here at the Whatnauts. You guys can find out more information on our website, which is thewhatnauts.com. Or you can use your favorite podcasting platform of choice. Just type in the Whatnauts, and all of our shows will pop up right there. If you like what we do, patreon.com/the Whatnauts is where you can support us for as little as $1 a month. We have all kinds of exclusive content up there at our $3 tier as well. We recently put up a community game night Jackbox party pack, let's play kind of thing. So that is up there if you guys want to check it out, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Speaking of spooky things, we did once cover a few episodes of the X-Files. For a Patreon exclusive thing for the review show that we're on here now. That was fun, so you guys can check that out as well. But yeah, I think that is about it for housekeeping. Last but not least, big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier. So thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks,
for helping us out and supporting us and keeping the mics on. All right, housekeeping done. Let's get into spoilers. Oh man, my spoiler graphic was chugging there on that. So I moved a bunch of things off of my computer onto an external hard drive, but the hard drive basically just remains in my computer. So all that stuff is now on that. So I'm wondering if it's that stuff, because I've noticed some things every now and then, and it's a little slow to load and stuff like that. So I might have to move some of those things back onto my SSD. Anyways, no one cares about that stuff. Melissa, where did you want to start with for Frankenstein?
Oh. I'll say I really like the characters in this book.
Okay.
I wish we got the only thing was I wish we got to spend more time with them. Like, we meet Lady Frankenstein again, who was in those Superman comics we read. She's got 4 arms. She's very cool.
I don't think I noticed that she had 4 arms in the Superman thing.
She does.
Yeah, it was here. I was like, oh, she has four arms. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know why it took the world this long to say, like, why should any Frankenstein be limited to only, like, the natural, traditional human number of limbs? Like, we can put as many on there as we want. She can have 4 arms.
Spider-Man once had 6 arms. That's
wow.
fine.
When?
Yeah. Early on, he got, well, was it Morbius, I think, was messing with him or something. And
more arms
yeah,
means more blood I can drink.
Right. No, but he did something to kind of change his DNA, and yeah, he became Man Spider, and he had 6 arms, and he's like, oh no, Doc, Kirk Connors, help me out. I can't live like this. Mary Jane won't like me.
I have too many arms. You have too few arms. I think we can work out a deal, Kirk Connors.
2 for 1 sale right now.
Yeah, like she's in this, and then she leaves. She quits S.H.A.D E. She's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And she like walks off into the sunset. And then we don't get back to her again before the book ends. I'm like, oh, I liked her. I wanted to see her, what she was off doing on her own. The story never circled back around to her.
Yeah. To be honest, though, I kind of like that she, like, that was the way they took her character. Like, I like her a lot. I want to see more of her, but I also don't want her to just be relegated to this, like not, I mean, I guess she's not, I was going to say, like, the jaded ex who's just like, I don't want to have to, I don't want to deal with you or think about our past relationship or have Frankenstein be pining after her. So I like that she shows up and they're both just reluctant, and then she leaves and that's it, and they move on. Yeah. And maybe they mention her once or twice again or something. I like that she's just out there.
Yeah, that is nice. Who knows who Lady Frankenstein is protecting? Maybe she's watching over all of us. And I like that she leaves, like, she can work with Frankenstein. You know, like, they split up a while back. They're in the same circles. They can be civil with each other. And she leaves because it was Father Time who was screwing everything up. Like, hey, remember when you two tried to create a sun in a tube?
Good times.
Then you guys thought that you killed the sun. Actually, no, I took the sun, and then I kept growing him in a different tube secretly. And sorry, guys, he escaped, and as his parents, you're the only people that can bring him back. Whoops, you have to kill him again. Sorry. Yeah. And she's like, I can't believe you did this. This sucks. Yeah. I'm leaving.
Yeah. So oddly enough, I kind of felt like this book was a lot like, I guess not oddly enough, but it's basically Hellboy.
It is very Hellboy.
Different characters. Yeah. Which I liked a lot, but I also felt like we didn't get enough of, because again, we don't spend the time with these characters. But on my list of shame is a whole bunch of Hellboy comics, namely all of them.
Yeah, I love the movies. I've never picked up any of the comics. Yeah, not yet. I would like to.
But yeah, like, that's like, I get Hellboy vibes, but I also don't know how much time they spend on the characters early on and how much they just dive right in. Like, I'm wondering if they were kind of banking on that, of like, hey, Hellboy is really, really popular. What if we just do what they're doing, but with our own characters? And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, like, I was really interested in Khalees, I believe is how you say his name, the mummy character, because everyone in the book was also mystified by him. Yeah. Like, we don't know who this guy is. Yeah, what can he do? Why is he so powerful?
He doesn't really talk. He's not as social as the rest of us. He doesn't chime in during group chats while we're traveling somewhere. He's the mysterious, quiet type.
Yeah, he doesn't really show up for antics right?
Yeah, no antics for this mummy. And what's especially great about his character is that he is a mummy. Like when you get that splash page of here are the Creature Commandos, and there's like a little blurb about each of them. It gets to Khalees, and it's like, this is Khalees. He's a mummy. We don't know anything else. I'm like, oh, so we don't know who could be underneath those bandages. And I wondered if it was going to be a reveal like, okay, I'm not really a mummy. I'm somebody else from this universe disguised as a mummy to like infiltrate the Creature Commandos.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. But yeah, I mean, they mentioned he's like thousands of years old and stuff. So yeah, he just in like... But he's wrapped in mystery.
Yes.
Literally wrapped in mystery. But yeah, I liked his character. The one thing I didn't like about him, though, is he is kind of the Deus Ex Machina, where he just kind of shows up. He's like, okay, I will do the thing that solves this all for you. Here you go. But that's the thing. That's also kind of what made it so interesting. If he is the Deus Ex Machina, why is he not in command of this stuff? Or like what is going on here? Like, why does he not just solve all of this stuff that much faster? I don't know. But I liked the characters a lot. The doctor's name, her name was Nina.
Dr. Nina Mazursky. I love that
Mazursky.
she like never took on. Like, I don't think they mentioned any kind of like super heroic or like code name or anything. It's like her name has always been Nina Mazursky, even after she transformed herself into a creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah. Which is, she's another one of the characters that kind of reminds me of the Hellboy stuff, right? Like you mentioned, she has this like Abe Sapien looking suit.
Yeah.
Like it has all of those same ingredients. Mm-hmm. So I could see how something like this would really, really work in the DC universe. I just think kind of redundant since they have Justice League Dark. But I don't know.
I like these guys too. I love Nina. Visually, I think the series does have great visual designs. Like I said, I love Lady Frankenstein with her 4 arms. Nina is, you think about those old B-movie horror posters where it is like the creature from the Black Lagoon and then the like beautiful woman in the clingy dress like wailing. She's like both of those laid on top of each other. She's got this
combined,
beautiful feminine figure and these like big shiny eyes, but like in a fish face.
Yells, yeah.
Yeah.
So the art was done by Alberto Ponticelli. And yeah, the art was interesting. I don't know if I was a fan of the artwork at first, but I think like the rest of the book, I think it improved as the series went on, which is also neat to see how the book can kind of come into its own and be like, oh, this is actually not bad. This is kind of good. I like this. I think the thing that threw me off at first with the artwork is in the same way that there is just an absurd amount of like acronyms and you didn't need to make this small as well. There's just a lot in the background of the artwork, and with the way that they did the line work and some of the like distorted perspectives on the characters and stuff, it was just, there was a lot going on. And so it was a little bit hard to take in at first, but it gave the characters this really distinct feeling, which I liked. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a DC Comics book. It feels like it is more of an indie book because of that. It's not, it's not their house style. It's not like, oh, Superman will show up and he's going to look like the handsome Boy Scout. Like, if Superman showed up, he would be a little bit more grotesque, which is kind of an interesting thought.
Superman, but he has too many pores and crags on his skin.
Right? Yeah.
Superman, but
That's
his
what
hands
space
are
travel
big enough
will
to
do.
crush you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like Frankenstein's teeth in this were huge, right? We
He's a big
see
boy.
Father Time, and he's in the body of this little in this little girl. And she has the like Japanese school girl outfit on and a domino mask.
Yeah.
But when she pops up, it's always on this like hologram thing, and her face is like really big and distorted, like she's looking in some fisheye.
Yeah.
Just being like, "Can you hear me?"
Frankenstein, you're back to work.
Yeah, and like that stuff I kind of liked. Like it gave it this personality that was really distinct. So I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Good artwork.
Yeah, I really like what this book does with its panels later on. I forget exactly what issue this is, but a couple issues from the end, Frankenstein is starting to have all of these flashbacks to the lives of his body part donors. And he was, Victor Frankenstein made him out of body parts from all criminals, all the scum of the earth that he could find. So Frankenstein's having these flashbacks to like, all right, I got in all these barroom brawls. I killed my children. I murdered my wife. And the panels are just inserted into the page narrative like normal. And like the colors are desaturated. Like that's the only key letting you know this is a flashback. And they just keep popping up. They're there like every couple pages you see more, and there's no dialogue. It's just these like rough, violent sketches of human action. And then Frankenstein, and you can guess that's what they are. And then Frankenstein confirms pages later, I keep getting these visions of what my body parts used to do before they became me.
Yeah. And then they use that same thing to great effect. There's a fight that they're having again later on in the book, and I think it's Velcoro hits the bad guy with this certain beam that makes them see their greatest fear or something, and it hits Frankenstein too, and he's just like, oh yeah, I thought you would be fine since you're not really dead, but you're not really alive either.
Yeah.
We don't know. He's like, yeah, I thought you'd be fine. You seem fine right now. You obviously didn't see your greatest fear. But right as he says that, we get one more of those panels, and it's just a shot of Nina Mazursky dead. And he's just like, oh, he's just so used to like seeing these like nightmarish things that it's just like it has no effect on him, but at the same time, like that one in particular is very affecting to the reader to be like, he actually cares for these people. Like it makes you think about the other flashbacks that he has, to not be this like, oh, am I just this murdering monster that needs to do all this stuff? He's seeing this stuff and be like, how do I fix it? How do I stop it? Like how do I help the next of kin of these people, or how do I make it right? And so it's not this like, oh, I'm struggling with wanting to murder people or stuff like that I think some books would go into. Yeah. But it's just like, no, how do I help?
Yeah, he's violent only in this righteous way. And he's got a big sword that he's always saying something dramatic and then like stabbing somebody down their spine or whatever.
It's the sword of the Archangel Michael.
Oh, I don't think that came up.
He mentioned it once, but yeah.
They must have just like gotten jammed in there with all the other bits of this story. It's an Archangel's sword. Okay, Frankenstein. Yeah, he's like, I am made up of monsters. I am a monster. So I know a monster when I see one, and I have the power and the responsibility to take them out. Like he's got he doesn't brood so much because you can tell, like, he's like, I have a purpose in life. I have a clear purpose that I know and that I understand. and that I know the steps that it takes to do that purpose, and I will just keep doing it.
Yeah. And that's kind of why he teams up with S.H.A.D.E to be like, oh, these guys have the resources to help me do all of that stuff, So, so I kind of wanted to talk about this whole rot story.
Yeah.
About midway through, I think it was the last issue of Jeff Lemire's run. Is kind of when they introduce it, I think.
Yeah.
Or it's something like that, because it's the one where there's that town that has the rot. I think that's still Jeff Lemire. I don't remember if that was his last issue.
Yeah, I think that is the last one where like Frankenstein and Nina go into a swamp trying to track down Animal Man. And Animal Man, like, the last person who saw him was this local police officer, and now that guy's missing along with Animal Man and his family, and they like find that guy, and he's like, oh, he's so grotesque. It's like such great horror design. Like we're getting somewhere. This guy's like bulbous and misshapen and melting.
Yeah. He looks like he's like melting and bubbling up, but also turning into something else. Almost like new kinds of limbs are starting to grow out of him. More bug-like, but it's still not. Like he's not actually turning into a bug or stuff like that. He's just this like grotesque, misshapen new thing, and they find out that it is the rot. Now, the rot, like I mentioned at the start, is kind of a new thing. I did not realize that reading the book, that Jeff Lemire introduced it in the Animal Man comic that he was writing parallel to the Frankenstein stuff here. So that's why they had that cross over. But then he introduced it into this book, and that's when we start to get the big storyline here with the rot. So this is kind of one of the first big storylines with the rot, and they've stuck in the DC
That's
universe.
Good to know. Yeah, I had never heard of this antagonistic entity before these books, and it seems so well tuned to the Frankenstein story specifically. I thought it was original to this series.
The rot is an enemy of the red and the green.
Yes.
Which we were introduced to in this book, but you might also know the green, because the green is what the Swamp Thing is in charge of. He's like their champion. He is the green made manifest. So that's where he gets all of his powers from. And I think Jeff Lemire's book was basically positioning Animal Man as he is the red made manifest, which is very different from the Grant Morrison Animal Man. They don't really mention the red in that. But that I think is an interesting take on that. And then the rot has also kind of become known as the black. It is this force of decay, as this force of excuse me, I cannot speak. As this force of decay, and it's kind of the third wheel in this triangle, but it is the most antagonistic stuff, and its champion also kind of springs out of the Swamp Thing lore. They mostly go with the arcane family.
Okay.
Let me see. I think I had it pulled up here. Anton Arcane. William
literally
Arcane.
The Arcane family. I thought you meant like the branch of DC Comics with like Zatanna.
A again, I'm just starting to read
Okay.
about
Okay.
Arcane in Justice League Dark because
Yeah.
they're introduced in that. But let me see, what is Anton Arcane?
Yeah, and
Here we go.
the we haven't exactly specified. The green is this like force of nature. It is the force of flora, and the red is the force of living things, of flesh, of fauna. Yeah, flora and fauna. That's the terms.
Yeah.
Which is very Magic the Gathering. I don't know if you know anything about Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I don't.
I know a handful of facts, and there are like these 5 colors that are these 5 elements, and within those elements is where you get all of your creatures and spells and the planes or the lands from which you draw mana. For example, I usually played a white deck, and the land you have is plains, and if you're green, it's forest, and it's forest. If you're black, it's swamps. If you're red, it's like mountains. And blue is water, clearly, of course. But yeah, just those prime elemental forces at war with each other gave me flashbacks to my first boyfriend trying to explain Magic the Gathering to me.
Yeah. So I'm about to get even more Magic the Gathering sound here. So Anton Arcane is kind of an arch nemesis of Swamp Thing. He let's see. He was created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson way back in the day for all of that stuff. But yeah, I guess him becoming kind of the champion of the rot is a more recent thing. I know during the same time all these Frankenstein comics are happening, and Animal Man, I know Scott Snyder is writing Swamp Thing. Scott Snyder got famous for, or I guess he didn't get famous, but we read last year American Vampire. Was by Scott Snyder, but he also had a really, really famous run on Batman and stuff like that. He was writing Batman here in the New 52, which is the same time all of this is happening. But this is where we start to get into the parliaments, and there is a parliament of decay. There is a parliament of limbs and a parliament of, what do they call it?
The Parliament of Limbs is my favorite disco album.
Right. Let's see. Where's the other parliaments? Where are they? Someone out there is screaming. The parliament of trees. There's a couple
trees of limbs already.
More of them. Well, yeah, but so you know the red, the green, and the black. They each have this parliament, which is that they are the like protectors of those things, but they're like the retired ones. It's weird to explain.
Yeah, they are the old mothers. Yes,
right. It's like, what if Swamp Thing was like, you know what? I'm done being the champion of the green. I'm gonna retire and get into politics.
Gotcha.
That's kind of what it's like, or at least the way I understand it.
No, this makes sense to me because this is the way the fairy courts work in the Dresden Files. There's a winter court and a summer court, and then you have like a lady, a queen, and a crone. And like whenever like one of them dies, you get a new one, and then they slowly age up. So like the winter lady will one day become the winter queen, will one day become the winter crone, in this like circle forever and ever. Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. I know there's also the clear or the blue. God. Which is water-based stuff. There is the white, which is like air-based stuff. There's a whole bunch of these things that I don't necessarily understand, but I think the 3 main ones are the green, the red, and the black. Okay. And that's something you're gonna see a lot in like Swamp Thing and like that darker magic side of DC comics.
Sure.
So that stuff was neat. I liked all of that stuff.
Yeah. It's decent dark magic mythology as it goes. Yeah, what
Indeed,
they
yeah.
introduced in this book, I think, was easy for a newcomer like me to grasp, having no idea that these were pre-existing larger concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, they weren't necessarily pre-existing. Like, this is them
okay.
kind of figuring out what the
Okay,
rot
yeah.
is and how it works and all of that stuff. These characters seem to know kind of what it was, because immediately they were just like, oh, shit, it's the rot. Like, not good. We need to nuke this whole town. Let's go right now. And yeah, so there's this like rot infestation. We don't get all of the details because, yeah, it does cross over with Animal Man. I think there was also crossover with Swamp Thing at one point. So we miss maybe one or two issues that might give a few details, because all of a sudden Metropolis is like taken over by this stuff. It's just like, what? Like, how did they get to Metropolis?
Right, and like Frankenstein is looking for Animal Man, and then after that issue he isn't. I'm like, we don't know what happened to Animal Man.
Yeah, they just drop it, which is kind of the bad things about crossovers like that. It's just like, I just want to read this book, but at the same time, like, I felt like I got what was happening without reading those issues.
Oh, who
and
was that?
It was small, so it was just like, okay,
there was a
only missing one
crossover with something else a couple issues in. I forget the guy's name, but it had like an abbreviation or an acronym in it. Again, of course. OMAC. What's an OMAC?
Okay, let me look that one up. I think it's like One Man Army Corps or something.
Okay, gotcha.
OMAC.
That makes sense.
OMAC.
That's a phrase that makes sense to begin with, and then you derive an acronym from it. All the acronyms in this book, like, they have a device called a Bigfoot. And the purpose of the Bigfoot is that it, like, this shields you. I mean, it distorts recording equipment around you so that, like, while Frankenstein's off solving a supernatural crime, there won't be people, like, taking a bunch of pictures of whatever monster, you know, he's fighting. They won't be shooting a bunch of video. Like, they'll record it, but it will be, like, super, like, blurry and unusable, right? So, of course, the device they would make for that, they would appropriately nickname it Bigfoot. But they break down Bigfoot into this preposterous acronym. Like, nobody would name the thing that to begin with. Even if you started with Bigfoot, why would you then break it down into sub words? You could just call it a Bigfoot. Like, from that, I get what it does.
Yeah, they went a little overboard on all of the acronyms and stuff like that. So, OMAC, yeah, the original version is One Man Army Corps, and it was a superhero created by Jack Kirby in 1974 for DC Comics in, like, the end of his New Gods series. Let's see, it was reportedly developed strictly due to Kirby needing to fill his contractual quota of 15 pages a week. Blah, blah, blah. As envisioned by Kirby, OMAC is essentially Captain America set in the future. An idea Kirby had toyed with some years earlier while at Marvel Comics, but never realized. Set in the near future, OMAC is a corporate nobody named Buddy Blank, who is changed via a computer hormonal operation done by remote control by an AI satellite called Brother I into the super-powered one-man army corps. I don't know much about all that stuff. I've heard of the name. I don't know anything about OMAC. That was a weird thing. I think the crossover was with a comic called Checkmate. Which is basically like, I think they mention it in the book. They are a super spy organization, but they work for the UN. So it's not like the MI thing for England or stuff like that. This is like an international one.
Oh, like Uncle.
Yeah, sure. So all of that stuff. But yeah. The Rot World storyline, now that I'm trying to think about it and all of that stuff, I actually don't really remember all the stuff that happened. There was some weird things in there.
The books are dense. They throw a lot of stuff at you. They jump around geographically all the time. It is a little hard to track. There is one part I want to talk about where Frankenstein is injured and Khalees is there. Like, he could heal Frankenstein, but he can like regenerate living tissue. All of Frankenstein's tissue is dead. And he's like, I can't do anything with this. And Frankenstein like blacks out hearing this. And then he wakes back up and he sees that he has been healed. And he's like, how did you do it? And he looks and there's like all of these people that he saved and they're all holding up their fists and all of them have a bandage over their arm. Yeah, all of them donated like a chunk of skin graft. So that Frankenstein had living tissue to be healed with. So now he's made out, like he's regenerated almost. Like he's made out of an entire like new and noble crop of people.
Yeah. Or it must have been that they like chopped off their arms or stuff and then had Khalees grow them back for those people.
So now Frankenstein is made out of 100 wrists because they're chopped like right here. So Khalees took like 100 hands and made that into a Frankenstein.
Yeah, basically.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, like there's stuff like that I think is interesting and like they have moments like that where I'm like, this is really cool. I like that. I think the thing that also interested me was, and I don't remember what they called it, but that city that was a mirror image of Metropolis, but it was upside down and in the sky and hidden in some cloud. And it was just like, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
How has Superman like not run into this thing? Maybe he has. I'm not sure. But like, like I liked that concept that it's the city literally turned upside down, and then they've built walkways and stuff. Like it's still gravity works normal.
Yeah.
It's not like they're like all of a sudden like, why are you walking on the floor? But it's just upside down. Like it's if you weren't on the floor is now the ceiling, and you would still fall down towards the earth. So they built all of these pathways and stuff. Like I liked that. Like it wasn't really a horror concept, but it was one of those things that was like, this is just strange enough. I think it fits with this like Creature Commandos, these oddball groups of people like this. Yeah, it was fascinating and fun.
Yeah, it's eerie. And they're chasing this character through that city. Her name's Crowley, and she's this she's a poet. She's a poet that like became a S.H.A.D.E operative. Forget exactly how.
I don't want to do this. I'm just a writer.
Yeah. Like I just technically work for you guys because you have a publishing branch that published my book of poems.
S.H.A.D.E has a publishing branch.
I need more information about this. Like, who is Crowley? She's really cool. She's got a neat design. She's got this like mystique look to her, but this texture almost like she has feathers, and she has this like bright design around her eyes. Like she looks vaguely like a lot of things, but she's not a clear, like recognizable monster or animal type the way a lot of the other characters are. Yeah, and she just sort of like runs in and out of the story for one issue.
It's weird. I wonder what other books they publish. Does Frankenstein have an autobiography?
He should. I like that Frankenstein also is a big poetry fan. He's very well read, and he's always quoting like Milton.
Yeah.
This is a good Frankenstein as Frankensteins go. He's very intellectual. You know, he's got that kind of brute aspect to him, but like he's brute with a very specific just purpose. And he's a decent teammate. Yeah. He takes a little while to open up, but then in the end, him and Nina are very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. So apparently, according to the Frankenstein DC Comics Wikipedia page, this version of Frankenstein is based on a version of the Frankenstein character from Grant Morrison's Seven Soldiers of Victory series, which is also a DC Comics thing, which I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Let me see, where is it?
I can feel some like secondhand shades of Morrison in this now that you mention it.
There's a little bit in there, yeah. Where is it? Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Where did it go? Control F. Morrison. Frankenstein's latest revamping was created by Grant Morrison and Doug Mank in 2005 and is similar to Doc Frankenstein. He is one of the seven soldiers and bears a resemblance to the creature as portrayed by Boris Karloff in the 1931 film directed by James Whale. Yeah, so Doc Frankenstein. I guess that's also a DC comic. I don't really know much about that one. 6 issues, something like that. But yeah, I liked his character a lot. Like that's just the thing. I think we just started to get a taste of them slowing down and starting to dive more into these characters. And then, unfortunately, the book was canceled. So.
At least it has an ending and it doesn't just stop.
I don't know about that. Because the
it ends.
World story ends, and then they have one more issue, but it's them just going on another adventure and like start. And just, like,
that monster
this is
bomb
weird.
thing.
Like why would they have just this one more? But yeah, like that's kind of what happens. It's just like, well, we got canceled. That's the end of the book. So
yeah. I said that I wish this would be like a project they would animate, because looking at Velcoro and Griffith, these Creature Commandos, we don't spend a lot of time with them. And I'm like, if I could hear your voice, I feel like I could like get to know you a lot better, even if I was still given like the same amount of dialogue that you already have in the comic.
Do you, when you read comics or books and stuff like that, do you give the characters different accents, like when you read them?
No, not unless it's like I am very clearly, not unless it's like a Gambit, unless it's a very obvious situation.
Yeah, there. I forget what the word is called. You might know, but the like when their dialogue is written in the dialect and it's very.
I know there is
obvious.
A word for that, and I don't remember what it is. Yeah,
I learned it in school once, and they were like, "This is a literary technique." And I was like, "Okay, whatever."
Yeah, and then I get to college, and I mostly read romantic poetry, where it didn't come up again.
Yeah, and I mostly read comics. So yeah, like I kind of did that with this book. I don't know why. I was just like, I wonder what these characters sound like.
Yeah.
Because I was just grasping at straws.
Yeah, like is this like a real gruff Frankenstein, or does he have this like very intellectual Kelsey Grammer type of voice?
He reminded. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but if you've seen The Witcher on Netflix,
I have not.
Or if you've played The Witcher video game,
I haven't.
Kind of reminds me of Geralt from that, where he just.
Okay, all right.
He won't say much, but he's very gruff. Right, where he just keeps his words to a minimum, but then when he does mumble something, he's quoting Milton. He's like, "Oh, you're actually really smart and you're an intellectual, right?" Mm-hmm. But he's like, "To be or not to be." Right?
What if he sounds like the Kevin James Frankenstein from the Hotel Transylvania films?
Oh no. But like I was trying to come up with like Velcoro, and I was like, is he Irish? Is
Yeah.
he a Welshman? What?
He
what
feels like
is
a
this
character
guy?
that would have a very strong accent or dialect
Right?
of some kind, but
Is
you
he
can't
Russian?
tell what it would be. Yeah. I don't know what kind of name
don't know, yeah.
Velcoro is.
Velcoro. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I wish this would be. I think this is.
Italian.
Oh, I don't know. I don't. He could be anything. There's
Ah,
a lot of
Frankenstein! You are back again.
I like, and I say this because it harkens back to like those old war buddy pictures where it's like, okay, we've got a real diverse cast of characters, and that we have a guy from Ireland, a guy from Italy,
Right? Yeah.
a guy from Brooklyn. Like that's what they would do. That's what counted, and everybody was this very big character, which is dated in a lot of ways, but I feel like if you take elements of that and map it with this universal monster Creature Commandos thing, you could get something.
That's an interesting idea, actually. Now that you mention, I think so. I've mentioned a few times now that I felt like the Creature Commandos are kind of redundant in a world where you have Justice League Dark. To be honest, I kind of would like to see the Creature Commandos set in the 1800s. Like, set this in the time of, those like early Universal horror films or stuff like that.
I was thinking about what this reminded me of. To keep it in the DC family is like that gang of World War I soldiers in the Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah.
Where they're each like a very specific type. They're
like,
from a very specific place.
You mentioned that, and I'm thinking of the Howling Commandos from Marvel. Like, what if that, like, set them in World War II or World War I, but they fight off the, like, weird Nazi monsters, which would just make it more like Hellboy, but still,
true.
It seems to fit more in that area. Or like, hey, we are just getting reports of this count out in out in Transylvania or wherever he's from, and we need you guys to go investigate.
Oh,
right.
You know what's another really good like assorted group of very strong specific characters going on a eerie sci-fi adventure? Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Throw them in
Good
something
one. Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Though in DC Comics, Atlantis does exist.
Yeah, I know.
It's
that's where that wet guy lives.
Known. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we don't get that, and so I think that in the end, it's just like, I can see why this didn't last all that long. But
I like I said, I like the premise. I would love to see it executed. I'd love to watch this thing. I would love to see Lady Frankenstein and her forearms animated somewhere.
Yeah. Indeed. That would be neat. I know they've done 2 Justice League Dark animated films. I almost pitched those this past week, but I decided not to. But yeah, I this book was good.
Yeah.
Not anything to write home about. Unfortunately, I can see why it got canceled. As much as I ended up liking the art, it just doesn't fit with DC Comics.
No,
really.
See, I don't know. So it seemed fine to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine comic. It's a fine concept. Just with what DC Comics has kind of established, it doesn't really fit. So, oh well, that's that though. Yeah. Do you have kind of final thoughts that you want to mention? Something else that we missed that you want to talk about?
I don't know. I think I've mostly covered it.
We get a strange cameo of Maxwell Lord. I think that's also in the OMAC issue. Maxwell Lord is an interesting character. He's kind of generally regarded as a dirtbag, but in the 80s, after Crisis on Infinite Earth, he was this kind of mysterious guy that weaseled his way into running the Justice League. He was kind of their like political liaison. He is going to be in Wonder Woman 84. The new movie. I believe he's played by Pedro Pascal. So
would love to see his face.
Thing. Yeah, so
I did remember one other thing I wanted to mention, which is that the last issue, it's narrated by this like CIA agent who's been monitoring what he thinks is this like secret underground terrorist group, and he's been like in a bunker, like watching all of these screens and taking notes and like getting ready, and then he like watches Frankenstein come in and like demolish the people he's been tracking for years, and then he has to go to the home office like, I gotta tell you what I saw. A Frankenstein came and killed them. And they're like, we respect you as an agent, so we are going to send you on leave for health because apparently you need it, and we're going to edit this out of your report.
You are crazy. That's insane. That would never happen. End scene.
I did like that.
It's kind of a funny ending where it's just like, yeah, that stuff would never. No, there's no such thing as Frankenstein. What were you guys thinking? Like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, that's kind of funny, but it was an abrupt end. It was just like, okay.
At least it wasn't like in the middle of an arc. That's nice.
Yeah, they at least got to finish up Rot World. All that stuff, but let's move on to recommendations. Melissa, do you have stuff that you would recommend if people liked this? What else might they like to check out?
You mentioned X-Files earlier. There is one of my favorite episodes of X-Files. It's in season 5. And, you know, the original Frankenstein novel by Mary Shelley. Was, it was called Frankenstein, subtitled, or the modern Prometheus. And so there's an X-Files episode called The Postmodern Prometheus. This is what I'm getting to. That is a takeoff on the old black and white Frankenstein movies. The episode's shot entirely in black and white. It's got this real like gothic music to it, except it's also scored with Cher music because they go to this town.
Okay.
Where there is like a weird scientist played by John O'Hurley who's like making weird stuff in his labs. Then you find out that he has this like deformed brother who's like the Frankenstein of the story, who's been sneaking into people's houses. He's obsessed with Cher. They keep playing Cher music over this episode. Jerry Springer is in it. It's weird. It's a weird one, but it's stylistically, because it's all in black and white, and they go to this town where everybody like looks vaguely like an animal. There's like a chicken lady and a pig man. It's a delight to watch. So if you just want like 45 minutes of Halloween fun, go to Hulu, go to season 5 of the X-Files and watch The Postmodern Prometheus.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else to recommend on your end?
We've already talked about Hellboy plenty.
Yeah, we mentioned Hellboy. I mentioned Justice League Dark. Go read the more recent series on that by, I believe his name is Ram V or Ram 5. I'm not sure how to say his last name.
That could be a 5.
It could be a Roman numeral, Ram the 5th. But yeah, go read that. It's by him and James Tinian the 4th. So it's by the 4th and the 5th, which is really strange. It isn't great. But that book has been stellar. That book has been great. I highly recommend that book. Also, go check out things like Swamp Thing. I know the Swamp Thing show that originally was on DC Universe. I know it's going to be making its way to HBO Max, and I think they're starting to re-show the episodes on the CW. I think I heard. I'm not sure how that's working there. But yeah, so stuff like that would also give you more of a look into the kind of darker magic side of the DC universe.
Yeah, I watched the first couple episodes of Swamp Thing, and I did really enjoy it. I've been meaning to go back now that I've got HBO Max.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's stuff like that. I would also kind of recommend Fringe.
Oh, that's a
TV
good
show.
one.
It's kind of like an X-Files spin-off. It is more science and sci-fi.
It's a takeoff, not a
based-
spin-off. It is
sure,
not
yeah,
in the same
yeah.
canonical universe.
Knockoff.
Yes,
Maybe is
yeah.
also a reductive term.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's more science-based, more sci-fi than the X-Files was. That was more like aliens. Do you believe? And yeah, so if you liked kind of the idea of S.H.A.D.E and them kind of going on these missions to hunt down these strange occurrences and things happening, I think Fringe might be a show to check out. There's some good stuff in that show. And then the last book that I want to... I don't know if I can say recommend. It's a weird book. It's definitely not a good introductory point, but it's an interesting book nonetheless. This is The Books of Magic, written by Neil Gaiman. It's a comic set within the DC universe, and it's heavily involved in the magic side of the DC universe, and it's basically Harry Potter written 10 years before Harry Potter was a thing. This is about a young boy with glasses who has a pet owl and finds out that he is maybe the most powerful wizard in the universe. And it's kind of characters like the Spectre and John Constantine and Phantom Stranger all kind of debating what to do with this kid. Of like,
Who's
should
the
we
Phantom
let
Stranger?
him know?
That's not the question. Is the blank-faced guy from Justice League, right? Who's a Phantom Stranger?
The Phantom Stranger is more like the Watcher in Marvel comics.
Got it.
Where
Yeah.
I don't know much about him. But yeah, he will kind of show up. He will kind of do things and influence things and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's these big like top level magic users. I think the Dr. Fate shows up and all of that stuff, and they're just being like, well, what do we do with this kid? Like, he's kind of a really powerful wizard, but he doesn't know it yet. Do we like send him to a magic school to get him trained and stuff like that? So yeah, that's that stuff. Last thing I would recommend is a more recent book, not as much tied into the magic side, but I think is a good introduction, especially for maybe younger readers. Which is actually, I think I have the book over here. Let me see. Where did it go?
Yep. Kyle's over there just scooting around, looking at his comics. And
Here we
now
go.
he's back.
Volume 1, I own the first volume, Gotham Academy.
Oh, you've mentioned
I
this.
really like this book. Yeah, this is basically what if Harry Potter was set in Gotham, where they are at this school, and it's the school that has strange things going on, and maybe one of the teachers is a vampire, and there's a monster lurking underneath the school and stuff like that. Yeah, it's these younger kids just kind of exploring these mysteries and like finding out all of this stuff, and it's set in Gotham, so it has this like gothic horror kind of mystery style to it. And one of the characters in here, Maps Mizugochi is her name. Probably my favorite like new DC comics characters. She is great. She's wonderful. She's obsessed with all of the DC comics characters and Batman and all of that stuff. It's fantastic. Worth the it's worth checking out and
Nice.
reading this book. So good stuff.
Yeah, variety of suggestions there.
Indeed. Okay, Melissa.
Yep.
It is your turn to do the pitches for this week and what we will read this next week.
Well, I've got 3 Halloween movies. 2 of them might be more of horror comedies. I think the third one's like more of a straightforward horror. And these are all kind of smaller, obscure, indie type films. One of these I've seen. The other 2, like, I have just heard about. And they all sound like neat, odd things for us to go explore together. So pitch number 1, this is a movie I have seen. A buddy of mine and I watched this a couple years ago, and I don't know how I forgot about it for so long, but I remembered it suddenly this week and like yelled because I'm like, Kyle would love this. I need to pitch this on the show. Yes. This is a movie called You Might Be the Killer.
Oh, okay. Never heard of this one.
This stars Fran Kranz from Dollhouse, who's also in Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing that we watched forever ago on like episode 6, and Allison Hannigan from Buffy. And he plays a camp counselor who is trapped in like a Friday the 13th slasher situation, and he keeps blacking out and he's panicking and he's covered with blood, and like he calls his friend who like works at a comic book store, and she's like stocking things on the shelves every time when he calls her, and he's like, there's this killer who's been running around the camp, he's killing people, like I'm afraid I'm in danger, I'm covered with blood, I don't know whose blood it is. And she's like, okay, I'm listening to what you have to say. Are you the killer? You said you blacked out. Do you remember what happened? Do you remember seeing that person get killed? Is it you? And so it's him trying to figure out, is it me? What's happening here? People are dying. Who is the killer?
Interesting. Good stuff.
It's really meta and campy and really well done. This was a lot of fun to watch. Pitch number 2, this is a movie called The Love Witch. And Witch Baby. Love Witch Baby. And I heard of this movie from like a fashion YouTube channel. Like there's a channel called Modern Girls that covers like fashion and like costume design in movies. It's pretty cool.
Postmodern Girls.
Yeah.
Filmed in black and white.
And they did a whole video that was every costume from The Love Witch. And the movie, I watched that video having no idea what this movie was. I'm like, this looks gorgeous. I have to look this up. So this is the pitch of the movie. Oh, this came out in 2016.
Cool.
Elaine, a beautiful young witch, is determined to find a man to love her. In her gothic Victorian apartment, she makes spells and potions and then picks up men and seduces them. However, her spells work too well, and she ends up with a string of hapless victims. When she finally meets the man of her dreams, her desperation to be loved will drive her to the brink of insanity and murder. With a visual style that pays tribute to the Technicolor thrillers of the 1970s, The Love Witch explores female fantasy and the repercussions of pathological narcissism.
Interesting.
So this was made in 2016, but everything, like this said, it's like Technicolor drenched. Everything's so bright and vivid and has this vintage kind of campy look to it. She's got like a different elaborate costume change in every scene. It reminds me a lot of like those pulpy romance comics where it's like, oh, if only I could get Brad to love me. But like the woman doing this is a witch stirring like a big vat of potions while she's wearing sexy lingerie in the middle of a pentagram drawn on the floor in blood. Like,
So kind of Elvira vibes.
yes, yeah, big Elvira
Okay.
vibes from this movie. And pitch
Interesting.
number
Okay.
3. There's a vlogger I follow for her Disney parks content, and she did a Q&A video once. And they're like,
course.
what do you like besides Disney? She's like, believe it or not, I'm a huge horror movie fan. And somebody's like, oh, okay. And like in the live chat of the video, they're like, cool, what's a horror movie you recommend then? And she's like, there's this movie called The Void. Came out in 2016. Nobody
I've heard
talks
of it, I
about it.
think.
Yeah. She's like, it's got great like John Carpenter, like classic old school 80s horror vibes. And the description of this movie is when Sheriff Deputy Carter discovers a blood-soaked man limping down a deserted road, he rushes him to a local hospital with a bare-bones night shift staff. As cloaked cult-like figures surround the building, the patients and staff inside start to turn ravenously insane. Trying to protect the survivors, Carter leads them into the depths of the hospital where they discover a gateway to immense evil.
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this movie
Interesting.
except for her recommendation and saying that it's kind of a 80s Carpenter throwback. In a way, all these movies are throwbacks to
Yeah.
very specific past genres of film.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got You Might Be the Killer, The Love Witch, or The Void.
Let me see. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with The Love Witch.
Oh, nice!
I looked up some pictures on that, and yeah, like it has this very like dreamlike
Yes.
quality where everything is very lush, but yeah, it is that like the just like there's a certain I don't even know what you call it, like a genre or style of
Yeah.
horror that is just filled with detail and
Yes.
and there's skulls in the background. It's ornate
Yeah.
and it's all that, and it looks like that. So I think I might go with that because it looks like that film will be beautiful to watch, and there's just going to be a lot of visual stuff going on. So
Nice.
let's
Why'd
watch
you
that.
pick
Let's
this
watch
one?
The Love Witch.
Yeah, I've been very excited to check this movie out and get a new heroine in the vein of your Morticia Adams
Mm-hmm.
and Lily Munster and your Elvira. Next is Elaine the Love Witch.
Good. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, that is what we will do for this next week. And I guess, Melissa, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWYT. Come see pictures of this giant cake when I'm done with it.
Yeah, indeed. You guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want to stay up to date with our shows, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. We are at 91 subscribers on YouTube. So please go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Help us reach past 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we can do it. We are real close. So please help us out. Get your friends to subscribe. Spread the word. Your friends, your foes, your mothers. Go steal someone's phone. Yeah, word to your mother. Exactly. Yeah, go steal someone's phone and subscribe us. Subscribe them to us is what I should say. But yeah, that about wraps us up for episode 127 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will be back next week with The Love Witch. Until then, bye.
Bye.